I just got back from the RampUp conference where AI was clearly the dominant topic in almost every session and every conversation. But what struck me the most wasn't the technology itself, it was how early the industry is in trying to figure out how AI will actually be implemented. So, after 2 days at the conference, here are the three takeaways that stood out to me. The biggest thing is that the standards are missing from AI and advertising right now. Scott Howe, the CEO of LiveRamp, gave a keynote where he talked about various waves of technology adoption over time. And one of the things he focused on was the railway in the US in the 1800s, and how the things that really made it succeed as a network were things like standardization of the time zones and standardization of the gauge of the railway tracks. Without these, the rail would not have become a real network and would not have succeeded in the way that it did. And as I sat through the sessions at RampUp, I was struck by how we don't have those standards right now in advertising technology for AI. The protocols are either still being developed or still at the proposal stage. And in some cases, there are even competing standards. For example, there's AdCP, which is sponsored by companies like Yahoo, Scope3, and PubMatic. And there is the AMP protocol, which is being sponsored by companies like LiveRamp and industry body, the IAB. To state the obvious, Americans don't really like standards. We adopt them reluctantly, and the first version is probably going to be different than the standard from the rest of the world. And so my takeaway is that it isn't the speed of technology that is going to slow down the rise of AI agents. Instead, it will be the adoption of the protocols around AI. The second main thing that struck me is that if I compared this wave of innovation to others that I've seen in AdTech, in every other group or every other wave of innovation, there's been a group pushing back. A good example is programmatic buying. There was a camp pushing for programmatic buying. They were very vocal in saying that it would lead to more efficiency and demand consolidation. And there was another group pushing back equally hard, mostly the agencies and the publishers, and they were arguing that it would lead to lower prices and a worse experience for the advertiser. And of course, there were people who worried about their jobs and the revenue. But I'm not seeing the same dynamic yet with AI. Maybe people have learned from the programmatic transition that you can't really hold back the tide, or maybe they just haven't organized. But right now, my takeaway is that this wave of innovation, there is almost no organized resistance. The final thing is, and again, this is less surprising, but that the actual implementation of AI is way behind the conversation. Yes, almost every post in the industry is about AI. Yes, almost every conference session is about AI, but there is a massive gap between the talk and the action. In one session, the moderator asked how many companies in the room had actually run campaigns through agentic workflows, and only about 20 to 25% of the hands went up. And based on my conversations in the hallways, I suspect the number is actually lower. Even when the moderators asked the panelists for specific examples of how they were using AI, the examples were very limited. So again, my takeaway is that the industry conversation around AI is way behind the operational reality. One closing thought. Most of the sessions that I attended were focused on AI, but I also sat in one that was focused on privacy and the patchwork of laws that were being created by different states in the US. And it is a patchwork, but it's a patchwork that is becoming increasingly impactful and assertive. So the AI acceleration execution is occurring in exactly the same moment that privacy laws are becoming increasingly constraining, which means that the companies that are going to succeed in the future are going to be the ones that are best at governance, control, and structuring their data. I'm James Deaker. I am the Yield Doctor. Thanks for watching.